They called it the Bank of God. They said it was the answer to the West's financial tyranny. A bank built for the developing world, by the developing world. But inside the boardrooms of London and the private jets over the Cayman Islands, it had a different name. The intelligence agencies knew it as the Bank of Crooks and Criminals. If you were a Colombian drug lord in the 1980s, you didn't trust Wall Street. You couldn't. If you were a dictator needing to hide $1 billion in stolen aid money, you couldn't walk into Chase Manhattan. You went to BCCI, the Bank of Credit and Commerce International. At its peak, it wasn't just a bank. It was a geopolitical superpower. It owned assets in 78 countries. It had $20 billion on the books. It was the personal piggy bank for the CIA's Black Ops and the Medellin Cartel's cocaine profits at the exact same time. But on July 5, 1991, the doors locked, the computers went dark, and the largest financial fraud in human history was finally exposed to the light. They told you it was just bad accounting. They lied. We pulled the records. We traced the wire transfers. This isn't a story about a bank failure. This is the story of the engine that powered the underworld. This is the Audit Files. Act 1. The Illusion. To understand the crime, you have to understand the architect. The year is 1972. The place is Pakistan. Meet Agha Hasan Abedi. Abedi wasn't your typical banker. He was a mystic, a visionary. He spoke about banking not as a business, but as a spiritual mission. He believed the Third World, the Middle East, Africa, Asia, needed its own financial fortress to protect it from Western imperialism. And he had the charisma to sell it. He didn't just want investors, he wanted disciples. But charisma doesn't build a billion-dollar empire. Oil money does. Abedi secured the backing of the ultra-wealthy ruling families of the Middle East. With petrodollars flooding his vaults, BCCI was born. On the surface, the growth was impossible. While American and British banks were struggling through the recessions of the 70s and 80s, BCCI was expanding like a virus. Luxembourg, the Grand Caymans, London, Hong Kong. They opened branches in places other banks wouldn't touch. They courted clients other banks wouldn't speak to. By the mid-80s, Abedi was arguably the most connected man on earth. He didn't just meet with presidents, he bailed them out. He donated millions to Jimmy Carter's charities. He flew United Nations diplomats on his private jets. He handed out consulting fees, essentially bribes, to politicians in Washington and London. He created a shield of influence. If a regulator tried to audit BCCI, they would get a phone call from a senator or a prime minister or a general, politely asking them to back off. The bank was too political to fail. But behind the marble lobbies and the smiling tellers, the bank didn't actually function like a bank. A real bank takes deposits and lends them out to make a profit. BCCI was simply a bucket. Money came in, money went out, but nobody was checking where it went. Because the true product of BCCI wasn't in the interest, it was secrecy. Act 2. The Forensic Deep Dive. This is where the illusion falls apart. We analyzed the audit reports from Price Waterhouse, reports that were kept secret for years. When you look at the ledger, you don't see a business strategy, you see a Ponzi scheme. But it wasn't a simple Ponzi scheme. It was sophisticated. It was engineered. Here is the mechanism they used to fool the world. Forensic tactic number 1, the Treasury parking lot. When auditors came to check the books at the end of the quarter, BCCI had a problem. They were missing hundreds of millions of dollars because they had been stealing from customer accounts to pay off bribes and bad loans. So, how do you hide a hole in the balance sheet? You don't. You fill it, temporarily. BCCI would call up their friendly partners, other shadowy banks or wealthy individuals, and ask for a massive short-term deposit. Let's say $100 million. The money would hit the account on December 30th. The auditors would take a snapshot on December 31st and say, okay, the money is safe. And on January 2nd, BCCI would wire the money back. It was a magic trick. The bank was solvent for exactly 1 day a year. Forensic tactic number 2, the back-to-back loan. This was their favorite tool for money laundering. Let's say you are a drug trafficker. You have $10 million in dirty cash. You walk into a BCCI branch in Panama. You deposit the cash in a certificate of deposit. Now, normally that cash is frozen, but then you walk into a BCCI branch in London, and the London branch gives you a loan for $10 million. What is the collateral for the loan? The money in Panama. To the outside world, you are just a businessman who took out a loan. The money is now clean. You can spend it on real estate, cars, or businesses. But in reality, you just washed your own money, and BCCI took a fee for the service. The scale of this operation is hard to comprehend. They weren't just washing money for criminals, they were operating a black network for governments. We found evidence linking BCCI accounts to the covert sale of nuclear technology. We found accounts belonging to Abu Nidal, one of the most feared terrorists of the era. And, perhaps most damning of all, we found the CIA's payroll. That's right. The United States intelligence community used BCCI to funnel money to the Afghan Mujahideen to fight the Soviets. The same bank used by the drug cartels was used by the spies hunting them. Everyone was in on the joke. Everyone was getting paid. Until one man decided to press record. Act 3. The Collapse. Enter Robert Mazur, a U.S. customs agent who went undercover deep inside the Medellin Cartel's money laundering network. His operation was called Sea Chase. Mazur didn't just want the drug dealers, he wanted the bankers. He posed as a high-rolling money launderer, and the BCCI executives? They welcomed him with open arms. In recorded meetings, tapes that we have reviewed, the bankers explicitly told Mazur how to avoid detection. They bragged about their ability to bypass U.S. banking laws. They offered to wash millions without blinking an eye. They didn't know the man sitting across from them was wearing a wire. October 1988. Operation Sea Chase ends with a fake wedding. Mazur invites all the top bankers and drug lords to a bachelor party in Tampa, Florida. When the limousines pulled up, the doors locked. The feds moved in. Dozens of high-level bankers were arrested in tuxedos. It was the beginning of the end. But the real kill shot didn't come from the police. It came from the accountants. The Bank of England finally ordered a forensic audit, codenamed the Sandstorm Report. What they found was so terrifying, the report was immediately classified. BCCI wasn't just broke, it had been insolvent for 7 years. Billions of dollars in deposits simply didn't exist. On July 5, 1991, the regulators pulled the plug. It was known as the Global Raid. At the exact same hour, authorities in 7 different countries stormed the offices of BCCI. They seized the servers, they froze the assets, they locked the doors. The Bank of God was dead. Act 4. The Final Audit. The fallout was catastrophic, but not for the people you'd expect. The spies? They moved their accounts elsewhere. The dictators? They had already moved their gold. The drug lords? Cash is king. They just found new launderers. The victims were the regular people. Small business owners in the UK, retirees in Pakistan, municipal councils that had parked their tax revenue in BCCI because it offered a slightly higher interest rate. Over 1 million depositors lost their money. In total, an estimated $12 billion vanished into the ether. Most of it was never recovered. Agha Hasan Abedi, the visionary, died in Pakistan in 1995. He was never extradited. He never spent a day in a U.S. prison. He died a hero in his home country, while his victims in the West were left with pennies on the dollar. We look back at BCCI as history. We treat it like a museum piece of 1980s corruption. But that is a mistake. BCCI wasn't an anomaly. It was a prototype. It proved that if you make the financial web complex enough, if you spread the money across enough jurisdictions, and if you pay the right politicians, you can steal billions and nobody will stop you until it's too late. The name on the building has changed. The mechanisms have gone digital. But the game? The game is exactly the same. This is the Audit Files. Subscribe and follow the money.